Let's talk about saving kale seeds. This is how the seeds grow, and I'll show you a little bit later, them actually growing in the garden and give you some more detail on that. But today is the day that I'm going to save these seeds so that I can continue to grow the kale in future years. And I'll share some best practices, and I will give you 2 methods for how to do this. So stay tuned. Welcome to True Freedom Permaculture, where I show you all the tips and tricks you need to have a green thumb, even if you weren't born with one. These are the kale plants. These are white Russian kale plants, and you can see the seed pods have dried naturally on the ground. And normally what would happen is these seed pods would dry and they would split open and the wind would just do its thing and they would disperse and they would naturally self-seed. And that's definitely an option. So if you have, a larger amount of space or you just want to let them self-seed, they will drop and you should get some kale plants. And in fact, these plants, let me show you right next to them, are plants where I didn't even seed them. So that was a nice surprise. I actually should start pulling some of these off pretty soon. These I probably can. And yeah, just kind of in a year when I didn't have a lot of time to do a lot of seeding and gardening, it's nice to be able to have some plants available to me that I didn't plan on. So yeah, here's a close-up of the seed pods, and I'll show you this one. So they flower in their 2nd year, and they'll be green at first when they start shooting up the pods like this, but you want to wait until they turn brownish. They look kind of dingy, but this is what you're looking for, and this is when you know that you're ready to harvest the seeds. The best time to do this is going to be after a period of dry days. You don't want to do this during, after a rainy day or first thing in the morning when there's like dew on them, because you want them to be as dry as possible, because ultimately you're going to be storing them dry. And so anything you can do to sort of help your cause is going to benefit you. Now they do say that sometimes you should clip them and wait for a few days and let them dry out. And I do think that that is better. I did not have the foresight or the planning in order to do that. And I would imagine that some of you might not as well, but you still want to save your seeds. But I knew I had to, because if you can tell on this, some of the pods have already started to go to seed naturally, which I'm not mad about. But I do want to make sure that I have some seeds that I can put intentionally in places where I want to. Now I'll go ahead and show you the 2 different methods for saving your kale seeds. And now for the first method. All I'm going to do is I'm simply going to just break this open very gently. It really doesn't take much at all. Just kind of rubbing it in between my 2 fingers like that. And your seeds are just going to pop out. Really easy. Second method, the paper bag method. So I am just using a grocery bag. You can use smaller paper bags, whatever you have around, basically. So we open up the bag. We take our seeds. These, even though it's a larger bag, they're kind of on the bigger side to be shaking them around. So I'm not even going to take scissors. I'm just going to break them off, break them in half like that. And I'm going to drop them in. And now the fun part, the shake. Okay, let's see what we have. Yeah, we have seeds. I wanted to give you a close-up of the inside of the bag so you could see what I'm seeing. And if you look, yeah, do you see all of these seeds in here? So that was only just shaking it for, I don't know, maybe a minute. But I'm probably going to shake this a little bit longer, see if I can get any more seeds from it. If you are short on time and you have a lot of seeds to do, I do think that this method is going to save you a lot of time. It sends up its flowers every other year on a biennial basis. And when the flowers get pollinated, then they will create these seed pods. What's nice about it is that you can, in the first year, grow your kale, eat your kale and harvest it as you would normally, and then the second year you will have the seed pods to collect your seed from. And you can, I guess the downside is that in order to get the seeds, you do have to wait until the second year to get them. But once you have things going, you can stagger them. So, you plant your first crop of kale the first year, and then you harvest from that, and then the second year it'll go to seed, but you can also plant in the beginning of that growing season another crop of kale so that you always have something to eat kale wise, and then you also have the seeds to harvest from, if that makes sense. So, you know, get that up and going. Something also is that they are subject to cross-pollination with other brassica family members. So for example, like if you had some collard greens and next to it, or if you had a different type of kale, let's say you had some lacinato kale growing next to it, then there you do run the risk that they can be cross-pollinated naturally, and that way you're going to come up with some sort of interesting hybrid kale. It might work out in your favor, I don't know, but it's not going to be like heirloom kale that you are intending to grow. Now they say that these plants need to be spaced about like half a mile in between, 800 feet, I think. And that's really, if you don't have a lot of land, then that's not practical for a lot of people. Now there are methods that you can do where you like cover some of the other brassica plants or other types of kale growing next to the kale from which you want to save seeds. Another thing to note is when you are choosing the kale plants from which you want to collect the seeds, and it's better to not just collect seeds from one plant, but from a couple different plants to keep that genetic legacy strong, you want to select the best plants, like the strongest, the healthiest looking plants, because obviously you will pass on those character traits to the following crops. And I think this is such a nice thing to do. You can take these seeds and you can preserve them for years and years and keep them going, and that way you can pass on really healthy, hardy strain of plants to your children, or to someone that in a future generation if you don't have any kids. I just think that it's a great way to like pass on the legacy of some awesome kale.
It's important to store your seeds in a cool and dry place, and I like to store my seeds in simple paper envelopes as opposed to plastic containers, because this way I can make sure that any excess moisture can escape through the paper, because you don't want your seeds to rot. And kale seeds will stay viable for at least 4 years this way.
Well, I hope this video is a help to you when you start saving your kale seeds. I will see you all again soon.